Hello everyone! The Panama Papers. 2.6 terabytes of 11.5 million confidential papers leaked from the law firm in Panama called Mossack Fonseca to a German newspaper whose name is right here, and through them to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalism, and through them to us. Now this happened on Sunday and it's had some very big implications for the world as well as some big leaders in our world today. So I'm going to attempt to explain the entire situation to you as simply as possible. Now it's going to involve some very corporate and political boring stuff, and I'm going to try to get through that as quickly as possible. It's going to be as interesting as I can make it. Let's get into it. So to understand the whole thing with the Panama Papers and the significance behind them, we first need to understand this complicated thing called shell companies. These are companies that don't really possess any major assets or really any major business operations at all, besides minor trades and dealings between companies. The important thing to note here is that shell companies are less transparent than normal companies, which is where they become useful to the people that are involved with the Panama Papers. Now before we get into the illegal stuff, I'm going to talk about some of the legal stuff that shell companies do, because that is their primary purpose, and that is what they are used most often for. They are used most often for the legal things that shell companies are involved with. Sometimes a company just finds it easier to keep its assets in another company or have another company manage its assets for them. Sometimes a company might need shell companies in another country, such as Panama, in order to do joint ventures or mergers with the companies in that country. Usually they're just there to legally take advantage of more favorable tax laws. Now, you know, this is legal. This is completely 100% legal, but it is morally ambiguous, so we're just going to leave it there. We're not going to talk about whether it's good or bad. We're just going to leave it right there. There are, however, a lot of shell companies that are not being used legally, and that is where our story takes place. And this is where it might get a little bit interesting for you. What some of the people, not all the people, not even a lot of the people, of the really upper wealthy class, like the top 0.00001% of people, very small minority, I want to really emphasize this. What a lot of these people do is they like to not pay taxes because taxes are not fun. They take away their already immense wealth. And so they use shell companies in order to hide their wealth and be taxed less, and then the shell companies provide them with the money whenever they need it. And so in this sense, it's just tax evasion. And tax evasion is illegal. But tax evasion is the least illegal thing that shell companies do. The most illegal things are what we're about to get into, and it involves a lot of corruption. As you know, some people, in order to increase their financial gain, break the law. This can range from fraud to money laundering, which is basically fraud, to a whole bunch of other things. Also, like killing people, which is what they do in Taken 3. And they do a lot of these activities, not killing people though, with shell companies. And it's not just limited to tax evasion. There's a lot more than that. So why would these rich people use shell companies in order to increase their financial gain? Why not just do it by themselves? Well, it's because shell companies are easier. With shell companies, you're less likely to get caught. To quote Investopedia, these companies have the essential characteristic of being able to obscure the true ownership of an asset, throw in the added benefit of a general lack of transparency of the financial dealings within the shell company industry, and it stands to reason that individuals and businesses would abuse those benefits. That's because whenever there's a system that can be abused, it usually will be abused. And basically what's going on with the whole corruption issue is that government employees are basically keeping money from the public without letting the public know. And that is considered corruption. We understand that shell companies are companies that basically hide assets and hide any major business dealings. We get that this can be done legally, like to make transactions or to get more favorable tax laws, things like that. And we also get that there's a lot of times when they're used illegally, like when people commit fraud, and when people launder money, or when people just completely evade taxes. So what does this have to do with anything? Well, let's look at the Panama Papers. Panama Papers are over 11.5 million documents covering about 2.6 terabytes of data from this law firm in Panama called Mossack Fonseca. And this law firm, by the way, basically creates tax shelters for rich people all around the world, but especially in Panama. Basically, these documents contained a lot of information about leaders around the world, such as Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin's close circle, as well as some British people and some other people throughout the world. And the Prime Minister of Iceland, that's a big one, to basically break the law to make more money, or to avoid paying taxes, or to make more money, or to avoid paying taxes. And the documents were leaked to a German newspaper whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, and I've already shown you the name once, but here's it again. But this German newspaper was like, well, that's a lot of documents. It's a lot of documents. We can't release them all at the same time. You know what we'll do? will leak it to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, as well as a whole bunch of other people. And that's exactly what they did. The German newspaper handed over the Panama Papers to the International Consortium on Investigative Journalism. And then on April 3rd, after over a year of that happening and over a year of getting organized, the papers were finally released. To understand the implications that these papers had, let's take a look at one case: Iceland. The Prime Minister of Iceland was convicted in a huge way, and he was either so embarrassed or basically forced by the public to resign. Guys, before we close off on this topic, I just want to talk about one thing. Something that always bugs me about leaks like this is that people that we love, people that we look up to, people that we respect, those people consistently, by doing things like this, break our trust. And we're often disappointed when things like this happen. Maybe there's a lesson in this. I'm not sure what it is, though. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye!